Welcome back to the 128KB podcast. We are back once again.
With only several days left to go.
Do you know how many days? Can you do the maths in your head?
Well, if it's Tuesday today, then we've got Wednesday.
Yes, it's Tuesday today.
And then we've got Thursday, launch day. And then it's down to whether DPD wants to deliver in the morning, in the afternoon, or at midnight.
The worst part of this now is the anxiety-ridden nature of myself. It's like, if this arrives at like 9 o'clock at night, I'm going to be so gutted.
I'm already worrying about it because I've got multiple things coming from multiple retailers physically.
Yes.
And what if I've got like 5+ things?
It could be worse.
Could be the last one.
No, it could be worse.
What's that?
You could have pre-ordered it from Game.
Oh, we've been saying Game's dead for a long time now, and all of you guys have been complaining. No, it isn't dead.
Not all of them.
No, well,
there was a couple of people.
Some of you guys won't even know what we're talking about because you're not from the UK. But you have been complaining. You realise that.
Today's super awesome video sponsor is MOBAPAD. Long-time viewers will know that MOBAPAD is our absolute favourite brand for Switch controllers and Joy-Cons, so it's genuinely a real joy to promote them. Seriously, their Joy-Con alternatives are a genuine game changer. No more drifting, no more hand cramps, just awesomely spec'd, great-looking Joy-Cons. And the Pro controllers are just as epic too. They're packed with features and feel amazing in your hands, all at a really competitive price. So if you're looking for a Joy-Con alternative or a new Pro controller, check out MOBAPAD on the link below. Game, for those of you not in the UK, is like the UK GameStop, kind of.
The only UK retailer that is a game shop.
That's right, the only one on the high street. And a few years ago, it basically died and got kind of swallowed up by a sports shop. So now most games are in the back of like
a budget
sports shop. It's
yeah.
awful.
Hideous.
And they announced this week that they've had to cancel not all, but a bunch of Switch 2 pre-orders.
Yeah, they had a cancellation thing.
Which is just, that would be awful.
Yeah, they announced it just under a week to go. And they were like, sorry, you thought you were getting a Switch 2? No, you're not.
They didn't say why. It must be stock.
Who trusts Game now?
No.
Why? Like, I'm genuinely seriously like, who shops with them?
It didn't even come into my mind to place the pre-order with them.
Oh God, well, you couldn't. Like, it was
not at the time, not at launch. You couldn't.
It took ages before they actually said they even had any.
Yeah.
And then you could only pre-order in store, or was it only online, or something like that?
Yeah.
Some weird like thing, and now they've just gone. Sorry.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm really sad that we're missing out. For the most part in the UK, anyway, missing out on the midnight.
Smiths is doing it.
Smiths is doing it.
Smiths Toy Store, which is a children's place that sells Lego and Barbie and stuff.
Yeah, Fortnite.
Is now overtaking Game, a game-specific retailer, as the high street store. Same with Currys, which for you Americans is just like
Target, Best Buy.
Best Buy, that kind of thing. It's just like a general tech store. They sell TVs and PCs and anything like that. You go there for HDMI cables and stuff. But they're like the place to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Best prices as well for pre-orders. We're not affiliated with them in any way. They just are really good. Yeah. So Game cancelled loads of pre-orders. I'm gutted that I'm not going to a midnight collection.
Yeah, same.
For like the kind of excitement and the community of that, because I miss that.
I do too.
But also B, for the fact that I definitely get it at midnight.
At midnight, yeah. And then you get home and just go sleep. Yeah, no, it is a shame, like, because I loved doing that. I didn't do it with the Switch. Everyone knows my story by now, probably. But with the 3DS, which was my last midnight console get, I queued up outside Game, believe it or not.
When was the last time you did a midnight?
Yeah, it was then.
Was it?
Yeah, Nintendo 3DS, 2011, 12?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Something like that.
I do remember for certain games doing it.
Yeah, Games doing it. I never really bothered about midnight games.
I'm trying to think if it was Battlefield.
Yeah, okay.
Like Battlefield 2 or 3 or something. It was really exciting.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know you like Battlefield,
Although, I like it more in my memory than I do actually
when you're replaying it.
I replayed it recently, a few months back. It's like, do you know, because it's on Game Pass, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like sweet. Jump in and play Battlefield. And it's like, and after playing Call of Duty so much, it's so slow.
Yes.
And not just like the respawning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the movement and everything's really.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God, I forgot how slow this is.
That's why I couldn't get into it myself, because I was always a Call of Duty guy, like that quick, like arcade action, jump in, jump out. Whereas Battlefield's like you got to set a picnic up and camp.
Set a picnic up. You totally do.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's 2 days. By the time this video goes out, anyway, it's 2 days until Switch 2 Day.
Yeah.
Until like the biggest moment in handheld gaming in the past like 8 years.
Yeah.
It's definitely the marquee moment.
It's been 8 years since Switch 1.
It's insane.
Mad.
I know in a recent podcast I was kind of being kind of almost nostalgic about the Switch. And when we were doing the goodbye to Nintendo Switch and saying about how amazing it is that it'd be so important to so many people's lives because it would have spanned.
Yeah.
If you were quite young when it came out, let's say you were 12, 13, it spanned your entire teenage years into like early adult.
Yeah.
And I saw a few people commenting saying, this is me. Like I got that when I was a kid and I'm now an adult with a job.
Yeah, nice.
And it was my console through all those years. Yeah. Like, that's a really beautiful thing.
It's crazy, isn't it? I also enjoyed all the comments that were like, the Switch is not dead.
Haven't
It's like, we're not saying it's dead. It's just, if you've got a Switch 2, you're just going to be playing Switch 1 games on your Switch 2.
But also, it has kind of been...
It's the start of the end.
And also, it's kind of been dead for a while.
Yeah,
We've just been holding on to it.
Yeah.
It's like the storyline for Expedition 33. Sorry if I ruined something. It's like holding on to the past. We've been keeping it alive. Nintendo have been keeping it alive, unless you're like the Pokemon company and you've been kind of poking at it, not keeping it alive.
Yeah, just showing its flaws. Like, look how this can't run. We'll release it anyway.
But I think there was a report from Nintendo saying how long they'd carry on supporting the Switch for. It was speculative, but it was a couple of years.
I was going to say it'll be a couple of years. It's usually the tie over, like with the 3DS and stuff like that. Yeah. It's always a couple of years, and then it just stops.
Silly. They were pointing at history for that and going like, how long did they support like the Wii U after when the Switch came out and in all the previous generations?
Yeah,
there's a couple of years, and we'll see dual releases for a while.
Yeah,
but Nintendo are, or at least historically, have been better than the other companies at cutting it off and going, right, it's time you moved on.
Yeah, we
can't keep making and splitting our development.
Yeah, well, especially now that the Switch 2 is actually completely different hardware, and it's not even like natively running Switch 1 games.
Yeah.
So it needs to be culled. Yeah,
it's old. It's underperforming. It's different architecture. It's unfair to ask even their internal development companies to be splitting their resources for this.
Because now they're actually going to have to develop two different games.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as it just is the same but more performant.
There's some releases that surprise me that are still Switch 1, even though it's day one. I'm surprised that Metroid Prime 4 is.
Yes, that there's a Switch 1
why they
version.
bothered?
Because I reckon Metroid Prime 4 has been in development for so long now. It was developed for Switch.
Yeah.
And they've just happened to gone, all right, let's just equally make it for Switch 2. So I think any of those dual releases are originally intended for Switch 1.
Pokemon Legends Z&A.
Yeah.
Another one I was like surprised that. And when we saw, I know I've talked about it before, but when we saw the direct about it, and it was just the Switch 1 version direct, and it looked everything looked Vaseline and low res.
Yes.
And then we saw Switch 2 versions, like, that's how it's supposed to look.
Yeah, that looks proper now.
Yeah. But 2 days to go.
Yeah.
The excitement in this room is like fever pitch.
I can't contain it now. I'm just waiting.
Yeah.
Impatiently. Not patiently. I'm like frustrated.
I'm frustrated as well.
Like, I just want to play the frickin' thing.
And like, for those of you that are just into handheld gaming in general, maybe you joined us during our, like when we were in the Steam Deck phase or the Ally X or those kind of journeys that we've gone through with different handheld gaming, we kind of want to put a pin in this moment and kind of reflect upon the importance of the Switch, but kind of look forward to the Switch 2 and go like, how important is the Switch 2 going to be?
Yeah.
For handheld gaming and just gaming in general.
Yeah.
And kind of let's try and imagine the impact this is going to have going forward.
Yeah, it could change everything.
I think it's going to, the Switch 1 changed the entire landscape.
Oh yeah, that really changed everything already.
I did see a few people talking about, because we quite often say it was the first time we saw parity releases in a handheld format.
Yeah.
And there was a few people pointing out that PlayStation did it with some of the Vita releases. I was like, some of.
Yeah, what? Killzone, maybe?
I think they listed like 4 games. I was like, yeah, scraping the barrel a bit.
Yeah. They did it like very, very minorly and then killed it. So I wouldn't say that justifies that.
Yeah.
90% of the games were not complete parity. 100% of the games on Switch were. Yeah. You know, like there was no difference between playing it handheld and docked.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't play every Vita game on a PS3.
No
you
way.
just so happened that you could play a few PS3 games on a Vita. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's the same thing.
I wanted to address it because I know there was a couple of people that called us out, and I was like, well, I guess technically you're right, like to the word, but in the kind of spirit of it changing gaming, it's the Switch that's done this.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
But like going forward, like how Switch 2 is going to change things. It's kind of hard to be clairvoyant and look forward like that. But
yeah, exactly, yeah.
I think we've got little glimpses of how revolutionary it's going to be again to have such a Nintendo device, super accessible, super easy to use, super low wattage.
Yeah.
Performing the way it is giving us indications that this could be a massive moment in gaming.
Absolutely.
And not just handheld gaming, just gaming in general.
Yeah.
And I point specifically at the hyper-optimized Cyberpunk.
Yes. That is a show-off statement from CD Projekt Red, isn't it?
Wow.
Like what they've managed to do. And we don't even know if what we've seen right now is the final build. Do you know what I mean? Like that massive half an hour dump that they gave.
Yeah.
There still could be a day one patch at launch that changes things again, you know?
Be mental.
But what they've shown is mind-blowing.
Well, we were kind of, before Switch 2, we're kind of like everyone's estimating what the kind of performance, and you look at the numbers on the hardware.
Yes.
Which we said, don't read into this too much, the specs, because it
doesn't really
mean anything because of how technology's changed.
Yeah.
But everyone was like, it's going to be like between PS4 and Xbox S kind of range, Series S. It's going to sit somewhere in there. And then obviously the critics are going to point finger at that and go, can't believe you're releasing a PS4 in 2025.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's not. It's so much more.
Yeah, it's so different.
The footage that we're seeing, and then you could do people like Digital Foundry doing like detailed side-by-sides. The dump of the Nintendo Switch 2 footage next to the Xbox Series S, and it looks better than the Series S.
Yeah.
That should, even if you're a hypercritic, that should grab your attention.
Yeah.
And go, something special is happening here.
Yeah.
And if I'm not a Nintendo fan, cool, but does this mean good things for me in the future?
Absolutely.
Which is kind of what we're getting at with this podcast.
Yeah, hopefully.
It's, I want to say it's almost like alarming how much better it looked than the Series S.
The first strikeout or like standout for me was seeing Street Fighter and seeing that comparison. And people on Twitter were actually changing the names. So they were putting false like information out there by putting the Switch logo on the Series S version because it looked worse.
Yeah.
And they were trying to say, look how rubbish the Switch 2 is. It's like, yeah, you've done that the wrong way round. Like the actual footage shows that the Switch 2 actually looks better than the Series S, you know, and that blew my mind. And I thought it's kind of understandable. Street Fighter, it's kind of like there ain't really a lot going on there, is there? Like visually, you got like a backdrop and a couple of people in front of you. Like, cool. Do you know what I mean? But like, it's not that demanding. When you see something like Cyberpunk, which is the crisis of today,
it really is.
It's not can it run Crisis, it's can it run Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
And if you say a freaking souped up calculator can play Cyberpunk, which is what the Switch 2 is, then it's pretty freaking impressive if you ask me.
It's insanity. Talk about a 10-watt handheld.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to really kind of appreciate what it is.
Yeah, and the fact that the devs have sunk all this time into it, that is the number one thing. They didn't even pass off their work to someone else to port it or anything. They did it themselves because they had that much like love and respect to make the best they could.
And it shows what we've been saying, and other people have been saying as well, is that beyond the hardware, it's the fact that developers are going to super optimize their games to take advantage of like DLSS in the Switch 2, and you're going to see these amazing performances. Conversely, when they don't, you're going to see underperforming.
Yes.
And I would, until we get hands-on, I'd say, but I would point finger at like, things like Hogwarts and go, I think that's less optimized than Cyberpunk is.
Yeah.
Looking at how it performs.
Oh, yeah.
Where that sits somewhere closer to the PS4 version than outstripping the Xbox Series S version.
Yeah.
Also, I want to see what split fiction is like on Switch 2.
Yes.
Because looking at the file sizes, I think that's poorly optimized. It's like 78 gig or something.
Yeah, I think that's just poorly optimized in terms of compression. I don't think it has any indication on like how the game will run. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's just how big the sizes are, you know? Like, when you think of other games, one of the big feats of the Switch 2 is seeing those file sizes and actually comparing, like the fact that like Cyberpunk was only like 50 gig or something, whereas on PC, I swear it's like over 100.
Yeah, it must be.
You know, so like being able to compress it that much whilst keeping performance high without it looking terrible, like that's pretty impressive. But yeah, so I'm not too sure if it like file size indicates like how optimized the game will run.
No. But to me, it gives a little hint at maybe there's less optimization happening.
I would assume the smaller the file size, the more compression and the worse it will run because the system has to like decode it. Yeah. So I would attribute that, but who knows?
We all see the comparisons to Xbox Series S, to PlayStation, to like high wattage consoles that are like hardwired in all the time.
Yeah.
What I want to kind of look at first of all is what the impact the Switch 2 is going to have on handheld gaming, first of all. Now, PC handhelds are going to sit there, do their own thing. They're going to cost twice the price.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to have twice the performance, just in pure raw power.
Yes.
The Switch 2 isn't there to compete with the Ally X.
No.
With the Lenovo Legion Go and the MSI Claw. It's not to compete with those.
No.
If you want like pure high performance handhelds, go there.
Yes.
But you're going to spend 800 quid.
Yes.
What I think is really interesting is what the effect the Switch 2 is going to have on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Now, I say this with bated breath because I know there's a lot of Steam Deck fans in the audience and we are Steam Deck fans ourselves. I'm not throwing shade at the Steam Deck.
Go on, throw some shade.
No, we did that before it launched and it backfired. No, I don't want to throw shade at the Steam Deck, but I just want to look at like the impact that the Switch 2 will have on that. Will it accelerate its decline?
Wow.
Or more importantly, will it accelerate the need for Valve to release a Steam Deck 2? And what that looks like.
This is tough because I think this doesn't just apply for the Steam Deck. I think it applies for all the PC handhelds.
Wow.
Even stuff like the Ally X, which, yes, on paper has better performance. Like, let's just ignore the fact that one's a PC.
Yeah.
You know, so people are going to say, yeah, you can get your games cheap and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's all true. But in terms of performance, I would argue that Cyberpunk's going to look better on the Switch 2 than it does even on the Ally X. You know, so until I get my copy in, because I've got it on the Ally X, and
that's gonna be such an interesting comparison.
Like a £400 machine versus an £800 machine, and it's not going to be twice as good on the Ally X. I'd argue it's going to be worse, purely for the fact that the Switch has DLSS. Yeah, the Switch is equivalently
it's NVIDIA. Isn't it?
It's basically running like a freaking RTX, I don't know, whatever it would be, but let's just off the top of your head think like a 40 series or something, because it's got DLSS some kind. What I'm trying to get at is
the baked-in ray tracing, the DLSS upscaling.
It's got the newer feature set is what I'm trying to say, whereas all these handhelds are AMD based, and whilst AMD provide incredible value, very good APUs, their upscaling is just nowhere near DLSS level. No. Because they don't have hardware upscaling.
But even PlayStation have come out and said that, because obviously PISA is basically FSR.
Yeah.
And they've been developing it together.
Yes.
PlayStation and AMD, that is.
Yes.
Even they've come out and said, like, it's not ready yet. This isn't the final version. This isn't ready for the optimized performance that we want.
Yeah. And
it's clear that they're behind.
yeah, and no handheld has an AMD chip with hardware upscaling, which is FSR4, RDNA 4.
Mm-hmm.
So no one has that yet. So the Switch is going to be better than all of them.
That's mad. Such a mad concept to think about that.
Yeah.
See, my head first of all was like, it's the Steam Deck that needs to be concerned, but maybe it's not.
It's
maybe,
all of them.
Maybe it's all of them.
Because Steam Deck's AMD, they're all AMD.
And maybe actually in that conversation then, maybe the Steam Deck needs to be worried less. Because, hear me out, if you're buying a PC handheld, like a ROG Ally, let's say,
Yeah.
you're wanting like the best performance.
Yeah, absolutely. When you go PC, you want to get the best you can get.
If you're buying a Steam Deck, you're not buying it for the performance because you know it's not the best.
Yes.
Because it's cheap.
Yes.
You're buying it for its accessibility, for the fact that it's got Steam OS and it's cheap and easy.
Yeah. It's
So
basically an emulation device now.
Yeah, but maybe you worry, maybe it's less of a competitor to that now.
Yeah,
because of
maybe
that.
because it's so far outdone by everything else.
You know what you're buying into. It's like, this is the cheap entry point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And yeah, again, you are buying it for retro titles. That's how I see the Steam Deck. It's a modern emulation machine. You know,
You're basically saying it's like an Amber Neck.
yeah,
You can't say that.
it's basically what it is. If the game was out before 2020, it will run on a Steam Deck.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Any game for the past 5 years, don't bother. And that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, it's absolutely fine. But that's what I see it as. And it does that incredibly well. But the modern stuff, it's just not going to do. You know, and it's fine that they're waiting for a massive leap in technology before they do a Steam Deck 2. But like you said, you know what you're getting in for the Steam Deck. You're buying it for the massive Valve library.
Yeah.
You're buying it to play these older titles that have been in your backlog, like I did.
Yeah.
I was playing through Psychonauts. When did that come out? Early 2000s.
Yeah.
You know, what was I playing? Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
Early 2000. I was playing all these old stuff. I was playing Lost Planet that's been dead for 20 years.
Yeah.
All of those games ran phenomenally well and it was brilliant, you know, but you're not going to boot up Cyberpunk. And I know people lie to themselves. I'm sorry, but they lie to themselves.
Yeah.
And it was like when they put that frame gen mod in something.
It was in place in Final Fantasy, wasn't it?
Was it Final Fantasy? Come on. You can't tell me
sure
that
it was.
looks good.
Sure, it was Final Fantasy.
Like 140p.
It was awful.
It was. No. You couldn't. It looked like a watercolor painting.
Yeah.
Like it looked like the screen broken. Do you know what I mean? It was bad, and it's okay to use these features in older titles, but I don't think it makes new titles playable. I don't. I think if you're going to use the Steam Deck, which I did a lot, was using Shiaki to stream my PlayStation onto it. That was brilliant. You know,
basically it was a PlayStation port.
Yeah, but see, this is where the Steam Deck excels. Is it does everything?
Yes,
like it is everything.
But here's my point. Then is that it's less relevant because you're going into it knowing that performance isn't there. I'm happy to make these compromises. Yeah, it looks like a watercolor painting, but I'm still able to play it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe the audience for that is less concerned about like highest end performance of a game. Whereas someone who's buying like the MSI Claw or the Lenovo Legion Go, whatever,
they're looking for like
every percentage that they can get.
Yes, absolutely.
They need to be more concerned about the presence of the Switch 2 and its hardware-based upscaling and optimized games, because if I'm paying twice the price and I'm not getting twice the performance,
you're not.
Then as a discerning performance-interested customer, right now is my best bet the Switch 2 for a handheld experience.
I would say it's so tough because the benefit of the Switch 2...
I just want you to say negative things.
That's fine. Everyone knows that I'll just speak my mind and get slack for it in the comments. But the problem here is Switch 2 is the most value proposition on the hardware front.
Yeah.
So like Switch 2 wipes the floor with £1,000 handheld from PC.
Yeah, like price per performance. Yeah, definitely.
Like absolutely. And you won't even match it like in terms of how visual fidelity because of DLSS. That is the one king that it's got. If the Switch 2 had an AMD processor, APU, it would be on par with Steam Deck.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's got NVIDIA, the only thing that has an NVIDIA chip. No other console, no other handheld, nothing. Unless you build a PC, you have no choice but to build a PC. So for Switch 2, the price is so favourable for what you're getting. It's incredible. But then you got the price of the games.
You do have to take that into account.
You know, whereas with the
like
PC side, it's the reverse.
Yep.
You dump all your money and life savings into buying the freaking thing, which will get outdated in 3 months.
Yeah.
But now you've got access to very, very cheap games.
Yeah.
So it's the way I see it still is it's so niche. You're only buying PC handheld if you're already a PC gamer. It's a supplementary thing. It's the equivalent of the PlayStation Portal.
Yeah.
You need a PS5, really. Come on. Like, you know, you need a PS5 and now you got this thing. It's kind of the same. Like, I'd say Steam Deck is the outlier.
Yes.
Where you don't even need to be anything because of SteamOS. But any other Windows-based handheld, you're only buying that if you're already a PC gamer. Like me. I've still got my Ally X. Love it. You know, like, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
But it is a PC. Steam Deck, though, is this weird one that straddles both. It's sat on the fence of kind of being old now.
It's like a PC console.
It's a PC console that's kind of weak,
yeah.
You know, but it's very cool because it does everything. So it's tough.
My first thought was, I was going to say, and in fact, when we came up with this, I jokingly put the title as Will Switch 2 kill the Steam Deck?
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to call it that because that's a horrible title. And I know I'll get hate for it. But that was my first reaction. Is like, what's the impact on the Steam Deck? And it seems clear that if you're in the Steam Deck land, it's probably not a lot because you're not there for the things that Switch 2 is offering.
Yeah.
But the thing it does make me question is, does it accelerate Valve's plans for a Switch 2, Steam Deck 2?
Yeah, the Valve Switch 2 just
they work together.
Copyright
Steam on Nintendo.
Wow, imagine
that'd be amazing.
It would run better than the Steam Deck.
Yeah, so does it accelerate Valve's plans? My point being, Nintendo waited a long time.
Yeah.
And now we've got this massive generational leap, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
But for the past 3 years, the Switch was basically useless. Which is why we drifted off and started looking at other handhelds.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah.
Because it was so outdated by that point.
Yeah.
It got frustratingly bad.
Yeah.
And anyone outside of Nintendo was literally just pointing at it going like, it's basically a kid's machine now.
Yeah,
things good for.
Yeah.
If we were to take what they said as that's true, you have to point that around and start looking at the Steam Deck with the same lens and going, it's starting to become a problem.
Yeah, it's just for old people games now.
It's a boomer console.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Does it mean they have to hurry up?
I think they're purely reliant on AMD here. Like, and unfortunately,
waiting for RDNA 4.
Yes, and that's the only fight that any of these handhelds have.
I'll be honest then, if they're waiting for RDNA 4, we won't see Steam Deck 2 until 2027.
Yeah.
Because that by the time it's cheap enough to put in a handheld.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is too late.
Yeah.
That it'd be too late.
Is it though? Because again, like I said, it's a complementary thing to your PC. Everyone's just going to stream from their PC like I was doing, or their PlayStation, because the Steam Deck does do everything. You're not tied to the Nintendo system. You can stream your Xbox on it. You can stream your PlayStation on it. You can stream your PC rig with a 5090 on it and have beautiful graphics on your little 800p screen. You know, like, and it looks great. I played the entirety of Final Fantasy VII Remake, streaming it from the PlayStation, and it looked fantastic.
It's a really interesting point, isn't it? Is there 3 million or so Steam Deck users?
So I feel like the people that are diehard Steam Deck love the Steam Deck. Purely because it's so versatile. It's the Swiss Army knife, which you could argue is the exact same for any other PC handheld. But if you're doing a lot of streaming and stuff,
not with the same accessibility.
And the price point.
Yes.
You know, you're not going to pay £800 on a ROG Ally X just to stream your PlayStation, are you? No. You're going to want to run it on the thing.
Yeah.
Right? But the Steam Deck is the jack of all trades now. And whilst I think a lot of people will be turned off and come back to Switch, a lot of people that were console gamers first, maybe, or maybe that ditched the Switch in favor of the Steam Deck are now going to come back. Like I've been seeing it a lot on Facebook groups. People like coming back after being on Steam Deck and they've got their pre-orders and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like the same with me. Like I'm happy to stump up the extra price of games because I know they're going to be super optimized now. And I just like Nintendo IPs as well.
Yeah.
If you don't like Nintendo IPs, there's kind of no point buying a Switch 2. Yeah, no. But you know, yeah, well, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
I historically would have 100% agreed with you. Switch 1 generation, 100% agree
I
with
don't
you.
know. Switch 1 saw a lot of third parties come in.
But third parties, not as good as everywhere else.
Yeah, but until the Steam Deck, it was the only place to play them handheld.
Handheld, yeah, true. Yeah. But when we're seeing, a point back to Cyberpunk, when we're seeing Cyberpunk and going, Christ, that looks better than like the Xbox Series S version.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I can play it handheld on the same machine.
But will a PC gamer look at buying a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally, even if they're paying the money out, right? And go and look, hardware aside, we're looking at games now. Do they want to pay full price for the Switch version that's whacked up at full price at 70?
Yeah, they don't. No.
Or you want to pay £20 on Steam or less from your uncle in Argentina?
I will say though, Cyberpunk particularly is still very expensive on Steam.
It is, but when it goes on sale, it's cheap.
Yeah. When it goes on
sale.
Yeah,
it's like twice a year.
Yeah, it's. I was looking at because when the backlash came about Nintendo's pricing, I was looking at it, and the PC version was more expensive than the Switch version.
Yeah, it's the same price everywhere now.
Yeah,
people can't hate on the Switch 2 price, but arguably, I understand they've just poured all this time developing it again for a new machine, and they've put it at the full price that is full price everywhere else.
Yeah, it's full price everywhere.
There's no argument about price here. It's the only thing I'm saying is, as a PC gamer, there's other means of getting it.
Totally is,
which is much cheaper.
And I'm being jealous. I have to acknowledge that games on any PC format are so much better pricing. There's so much more competition for marketplaces and stuff.
Yeah.
And digital ownership in the PC land is so well established. Like the system works.
Yes.
Where it's still kind of Wild West on console formats.
Yes.
Digital only, and being able to have marketplaces and stuff, it doesn't quite
work.
But
I do agree with what you're saying, though. What I've just brought up is, I would say, the general population.
Yeah.
But we do have to factor in some people have money.
Yeah.
And the people with money, the better option is going to be to buy a Switch 2 and pay the price. Because, again, Cyberpunk is going to be a big pivotal point here. It's been developed again for this. DLSS, we've got an NVIDIA chip in the Switch 2. If you don't mind rebuying the game at full price, you know, you're going to get a better experience than running it on like £1,000 handheld, which is just unbelievable.
It's just wild.
Mad, isn't it?
The other one then, if it doesn't accelerate the Steam Deck 2, which I guess it won't, I guess they're going to hold station.
They have to wait. If Valve drop a Steam Deck 2 now in the next year, they've blown it, because they've argued we are not touching it until there's a what did they say, a significant jump between their Van Gogh, whatever's in the Steam Deck, to this next one. There's already an iteration increase, which we're seeing in the leaks of the Asus Xbox collab.
Project Keenan and Gale.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so there's already been iterations that they could have jumped on. They could have gone to a Z1
If they
Extreme.
call it the orange soda, I would love that.
They do an orange one. They don't call it anything. It's just orange.
We call it the orange soda.
That's it.
That'd be amazing.
I think that'd be cool. Someone needs to shell swap it to an orange one when it comes out.
Well, that's a really good segue, because the next people I want to aim at is Xbox and Microsoft.
Yeah.
And how they've sat around and watched the Switch for 8 years and not reacted with a handheld is beyond me.
Yes.
I'll get to PlayStation as well, because they kind of did, but awful compromise.
Yeah.
I will say Microsoft or Xbox division in particular have no experience in the handheld space.
Never. I've always wanted one. Always.
It's always been an odd one that they never did it.
Yeah.
If you think back, like PSP kind of generation where handheld gaming was and like DS was really popular.
Yeah, we were
still.
all waiting for an Xbox One then. Never happened.
They've sat around and not done anything. The talk at the moment is that their dedicated handheld's been delayed anyway, that the project's been postponed.
Have they seen Switch 2 and gone, God damn,
Maybe,
pulled out of it?
Maybe.
No,
they're
I know
talking,
why.
they're focusing on things. We covered it in the news, but they're focusing on optimizing Windows and working with partners for a third-party handheld, which we're pretty sure everyone's pretty sure is Asus.
No, it is. It is, isn't it? That's confirmed now.
Well,
it is.
Yeah,
it is. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Your uncle at Asus.
Come on.
I did actually ask Asus PR about it. They said we cannot talk about anything that is a rumor.
They posted the freaking video.
I know.
And
they
Xbox replied. Like, Xbox ain't going to be replying to like a random...
That meme.
Yeah, the side eyes one. It's Asus 100%. We called that so early.
And it's... Yeah, we called it so early because it was so much the obvious
the right pairing.
Right pairing. How much it affects that, and I guess that actually rubber bands back to what we're talking about, the more expensive PC handhelds. It definitely affects them.
Yeah.
And it affects what they do. The third party thing that they're doing with Asus is just going to be an iteration of like the Ally X.
Yes.
Of some kind, or the Ally. It'll be an Ally
version.
Rather than the Ally X version.
Yeah.
But when we talk about their dedicated handheld, I think that's the kind of more interesting conversation here.
I think by the time a dedicated handheld would have been set to release, it doesn't.
It's too late.
No, I think it's gone. I think with how Xbox are now focusing on this Windows thing, and we're seeing rumors that they're testing Steam and Epic on the Xbox itself, and that they're developing what we dub Xbox OS, the slimmed down Steam OS ripoff, but the Windows version. I think they're going so hard on that. I think they're going to change their course, and they're going to deviate and focus on that. And I think Xbox Home Console ends up being a PC-based thing, like the Xbox on... the gaming OS on Windows will become. And I think the Xbox OS, the official console OS, will die. And then there'll be no need for like an actual dedicated Xbox console handheld because it will just be this partnered device. Do you know what I'm saying?
100%.
Like, I think it will just be that. But I mean, obviously I could be totally wrong, but...
I know that we know that from what Phil Spencer and the Xbox division say, that hardware is still important to them, despite the fact that they're going to this kind of multi-platform publishing model.
Yeah.
And they're working with partners from Nintendo right over to Asus and PC handhelds, and Windows are working really hard on the operating system. But they want their games, the best way to play Xbox games will be on an Xbox hardware.
Yes.
They were keen to stress that. Whether that's true or not is wildly up for debate, especially when we start seeing Xbox games come to Nintendo Switch 2 and seeing what NVIDIA can do with Xbox games.
Well, I'm still on the fence as to what's going on with Xbox, because they said previously the next system will be the greatest generational leap in performance you've ever seen.
Will they switch to NVIDIA?
And they randomly, if you remember during that...
They're throwing shade at AMD,
they just shat all over AMD. Like, for no reason.
In their business direction. So weird.
And it was like a random pivotal point. They were talking about one thing, and they went, by the way, AMD sucks. And they were like, we hate them. We've been with them for a long time.
Yeah.
Screw AMD. Back to this. And we were like, what? Did anyone just see that?
That was weird.
Like, it was weird. They never brought it up again.
Nope.
Never talked about it.
I don't think it was intended to be in there.
I think someone dropped that in by accident. I think it was like someone was still filming.
Yeah.
Like, and they just like launched it in the video. It was weird. Like, weird.
Yeah.
And now when you think about it, like, if they're on about this biggest generational leap in gaming... It's like the only way they can do that is with DLSS.
Yes.
The only way.
Yeah.
Like, PSSR is already a subpar version of FSR4, which is trying to catch up with DLSS. I've got a 9070 XT. I've jumped ship from NVIDIA to AMD purely for price to performance in PC land.
Yeah, for GPUs. But
I can't argue that DLSS is better. Like, it is better. It's just AMD's the cheaper one, you know?
And the difference when we talk about like straight up PC builds, like with a PC, you can power your way through most problems.
Oh, yeah.
When you're talking about like super low wattage
Yes.
APU setups,
You need the help.
you hardware based upscaling. That technology is so important now.
Yeah. It's the only way to make it affordable.
I think you could be onto something there with Xbox. I think it's plausible, not just that they jump over to Nvidia for their home console, but they ditch the handheld thing entirely. I'd be gutted because I love the idea of an Xbox handheld.
I think it will still be there. It just will probably be the PC ones.
And that's what I mean. But their own.
But yeah, an actual official Xbox.
No, it will be. The only thing they'll do is a collaboration with
I think
Asus,
so.
and that's it.
I could be totally wrong, maybe not. But the way that I'm tying in does how Switch 2 changes gaming here is Xbox. We know on the 8th are going to be doing their big direct or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
We know they're going to just show everything Switch 2. It's going to be a Switch 2 direct.
Yes.
It's just going to be like, look what's on the Switch 2.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they're going to be throwing everything over there. Have some Halo, like whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like everything's going to Switch 2. But you know what that means? They've spent time developing games for DLSS.
Yes.
What have they now got in their pocket going forward?
Yeah.
How to develop games for DLSS.
Yeah.
So if they've got the biggest generational leap going forward, changing to NVIDIA, they've already got all this development time using DLSS.
And in the future, if they've done that, they then actually move in line with Nintendo.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is like the biggest player base there is.
Yeah. And because Microsoft are now just a publisher,
yeah,
they've now easily got an Xbox and a Nintendo version side by side because they're both using the same technology. The only one they have to kind of like dabble with is PlayStation.
Yeah. And you think about the player base it opens up to for Microsoft's games.
Yeah.
150 million units sold of the Switch.
Yeah.
That was always the headline. The important part was there's 130 million active accounts.
Yeah. That's insane.
That's a massive player base.
Insane. Yeah. Exactly.
You think about all the development attention that's gone in, let's say for Asus on the Ally X.
Yeah.
But yet the PC handheld market is only 6 million players.
Yeah. Across all of them.
Across all
including Steam Deck.
And Steam Deck's half of that.
Yeah.
So they'll go spend that much development on a couple of million, and that's a success. Imagine just being able to open the door to a market for 130 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
And I mean, the best estimates are that we're going to see 20 million Switch 2s in the first 9 months.
Yeah.
Like by March next year, it'll be 20 million sold. Like it's a huge, it'd be massive for them. And I think from a business perspective, it's probably sensible that they do abandon their dedicated handheld, partner with Asus for this kind of Asus Xbox thing, and just develop their games for Switch 2.
Yeah. And other third parties though as well, like how Switch will change gaming is if other developers like Cyberpunk that's already, you know, CD Projekt Red have already jumped in on really, really trying to squeeze every last drop from the Switch 2's already old, you know, hardware, but look what it's doing. If they've got other developers that are really utilizing DLSS and have the experience now for making it for Switch 2, and let's say Xbox become NVIDIA chips as well, again, that just gets thrown over little to no, like they're almost developing it for the same hardware.
Yes.
So there'll be better parity. You know, it's not like PC where you could have a million PCs and they're all different.
Does the Switch 2 then become the Xbox handheld?
Yeah, that's what like, I'm trying to get at.
Like
yeah,
essentially.
It essentially will be, yeah, because Microsoft, they want to put all their games everywhere.
Yep.
It's only PlayStation that are always kicking their heels because they always have done. Yeah, I don't want to play your games. Like, you know, that's Sony talking there, right? Because they've always done that. They're like, yeah, we'll be cool.
Exclusivity is important.
We'll do crossplay, yeah? And then the game comes out and Sony go, no, I don't want to do crossplay with you.
Turn it off.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, come on, man. But so the Switch 2 will be the Xbox handheld, and then the Xbox handheld will be a PC.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But it will, I think gaming will go for the better. Not that I did want NVIDIA to be this like monolithic, like, you know, dominating force.
Yeah.
Because I'm all for the underdog. I'm all AMD on PC now, which is really weird.
That's just for the price.
But for the price, and I'm just raw dog in it for everything. I don't even need FSR 4 because I can play 4K at like 100 FPS on anything currently, because the price is so much cheaper than NVIDIA. But I've been NVIDIA for like 20 years. But as you were saying, on low-powered systems, even a console's low-powered when you think about it, compared to PC.
Yeah.
So they need all the help they can get. If they moved and shift to DLSS, if a Switch 2 can look better than a Series S,
it's wild.
Just think how good a Series X2 with DLSS could be.
Just wait for that developer direct from Xbox staff next month. It's going to be wild to see how some of these Xbox games look on Switch 2.
Yeah.
That's going to be really eye-opening because obviously we'll try our best, but there's obviously like publications like Digital Foundry that will do side-by-sides. And if they're looking better than the Series S every time...
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
That's a big alarm bell.
But that's got to surely open the eyes of everyone to trying to get in with NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Because it's only them that's the reason that this is possible.
Which takes us really nicely over to PlayStation.
Yeah. What do they do? Because they're through and through AMD, aren't they?
They're stuck with AMD. There's nothing that they can change.
I was just about to say, because of Project Amethyst, PISA, they're incorporating FSR 4, and I think they're scrambling to try and keep up with what's going to happen very soon because of the Switch 2.
Yeah.
They're seeing how good DLSS is and everything, and Sony are like, oh man.
Let's just play a fantasy. Imagine the PS5 Pro with NVIDIA hardware in it.
Yeah,
so it had DLSS.
It'd actually be worth it then.
Just imagine it. It's wild.
Yeah, it would be
the potential of that machine.
Oh, it would be the equivalent of like a very expensive PC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And suddenly you'd be looking at performance of a very expensive PC for like whatever.
Half the price. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly where my head was at. You go, suddenly that takes PlayStation back to where it should be.
Yes.
Which was always like great performance, great price compared to a PC. Well, if we compare to a PC, it always was.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, compared to PC, yes.
But they're stuck with AMD.
Yeah.
And more importantly then, we're not talking about Nintendo Switch versus Nintendo Switch 2 versus PlayStation on a kind of console.
Are you saying Switch 2 is better than PS5?
I'm not going to ever say
performance.
4K pure raster raw dog performance. No. And that was my point at that bit. It's like it's stupid to compare those two because they're not in the same.
But didn't we
bracket.
compare them?
We didn't.
Sorry, I just pulling up comments. Yeah.
But handheld.
Yes.
The need for PlayStation to have an active handheld in the market. They aren't going to do what Microsoft have done and have a collaboration with Asus.
No.
PlayStation would never do that.
No.
PlayStation have sat on their hands for so long. How long ago was the Vita killed?
2013, 14?
It's like
something like that.
Yeah. You're talking like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And they've not entered the space since. They've, again, like Microsoft, have watched the Switch dominate and they've done nothing.
Yeah.
They then bring out the Portal.
God,
I hate the Portal so much.
Yes.
I wanted it to be so much more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the issue. Is we wanted it to be an actual.
And everyone that's bought it has loved it.
Of course, because if you're in the PlayStation land, you don't know anything else. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't care about a Steam Deck, or you don't even know what an Ally is.
Yeah.
You don't care about Nintendo. That's baby things.
And I guess when you consider the price point now compared to what you get, you go, it's all right.
It's okay.
£200 or whatever it is.
It's a controller with a screen on it.
The controller with a screen, you go, okay, that's not too bad.
It's fine. Yeah.
It doesn't do anything though.
No.
And it doesn't scratch the itch of what PlayStation fans need and the PlayStation community need, which is a dedicated handheld that can run in tandem with their PS5.
But you know where I think PlayStation would excel is not in the home console market, is with the handheld.
Yeah.
Because they are scrambling with AMD to bring FSR 4 features over to PlayStation with, the PISA and stuff like that. But because a Sony handheld is still way off the mark, it would just be in development or R&D or whatever right now. If they can get first hands on with like RDNA 4,
Yeah.
with actual true FSR 4, which AMD just recently came out and saying they're now going to try and like have all the feature set of NVIDIA. So we're talking like path tracing and all this kind of stuff, like AI frame gen now, all this kind of stuff. It will always be subpar to NVIDIA, but this is a huge jump for AMD. Like, it really, really is. And if Sony can jump on that immediately, because they're working together,
Beat the PC handhelds to the punch.
because that's, they are literally directly working with AMD.
Yeah.
It's not like we'll just wait 2 years
Buy
until
it
it's
in.
compatible. They are helping AMD develop these tools. They're giving them the games and stuff and going, train your AI on this and whatever. They're actively working with them. The PS5 Pro isn't RDNA 4, but it isn't RDNA 3. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. So it's like this hybrid thing. So they've got access to feature sets before other things did. So if they can work with AMD to bring RDNA 4 things to a handheld before any other PC market could, like an Ally 2 or 3 or whatever it might be, or before whatever it is, they could wipe the floor by having true like hardware upscaled handheld stuff and actually do a PS Vita right.
Yes.
Where you've got real PS5 games actually running on a handheld.
Yeah.
Like, and that would be incredible.
The talk is that they are working on a handheld, but we won't see it until the PS6 generation.
Yeah, it's still a couple of years out.
Yeah, which is 27 at the earliest.
Then
Probably likely end of 27.
Should be easily RDNA 4 then.
It will be. But then if that's the timeline, so will everyone else be in the PC handheld space.
Maybe, yeah.
It's
you're right.
2 years out, 2.5 years out.
Yeah.
I think we'll see that
because
generation.
you've got the console effect problem where it takes them so long to develop that it's already outdated when it's launched. Yeah. Just like the Switch 2. This thing's been in development since 2020 or something. It's got a 2021 chip in it. So it's already out of date because they've got to do so much process of stuff. Can we get them, so many of them? Can we test them? Is it going to work? Blah, 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 blah. On the PC handheld front, because it's a PC, it's just plug the newest thing in, sell it. They don't care.
Yeah.
It's deal with it, isn't it? There's no development or anything because Asus don't make games.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
They don't care.
They just give you the latest bit of hardware and then it's down to you whether or not you want to deal with the bugs,
Yeah, PlayStation could steal a march on the PC handhelds for certain, but they're stuck with AMD.
Yeah, the only one I can imagine, and I kind of hope they do, because it would give them a real good foot up in the console war, which I hate, is Xbox.
Yeah.
If Xbox jumped ship for AMD, I mean, they already put the middle finger up during that event.
It was hilarious.
It would be amazing.
For certain, though, the Switch 2 is a domino dropping.
Yeah.
In the entire gaming space. And now it's what's the next domino? It's going to follow it because everyone's going to have to react.
Yeah, you can't dismiss this.
And I don't think anyone was expecting that domino to be so big.
I wasn't.
I think we definitely weren't. And from the reactions that I see in the kind of the people that comment on things, I think we'd all taken the Switch so much for granted now because it was so old.
Yeah.
The hardware was so lacking. Games were underperforming. We'd kind of dismissed it. And we knew the Switch 2 was going to be big because of the player base.
Yes.
We didn't expect its performance and the optimization to be so big.
Yeah.
I remember my visceral reaction to the Switch 2 announcement when they were reeling off the games. And it's Elden Ring and it's Cyber. And it was Andy,
Outlaws.
this is ridiculous. Outlaws. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of witnessed a moment here.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of us expected that domino to be so big, but it falling is going to be seismic.
Massive. Yeah.
And I think it's really exciting to see what the reaction is going to be from everyone else.
All eyes are on Nintendo right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely with this.
Yeah. And I think all the other big players are looking inward and going, we need to react.
Yeah.
We need to do something. The other really big part, just really quickly before the end, is how well optimized the games are going to be for the Switch, I think is testament to anyone else that's going to be taking advantage of NVIDIA hardware going forward that uses DLSS.
Yep.
Of like game developers can do wonders with this hardware with super low performance.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting going forward in the handheld space.
Absolutely. But that's, again, another reason why I really think Xbox could go into
if not
into that.
Xbox, which I think you're right, it will be, but any of the other manufacturers.
Yeah.
I'm sure if they aren't already, we'll be starting to look at it and go, maybe.
Well, I think the reason why is because they're not there. So like all the PC handheld people, they're not asking NVIDIA for chips.
No.
They're buying whatever's available. And it's AMD that is pushing APUs forward.
Yeah.
You know, and they're just going, there's the Z1, there's whatever it is, you know, like all these random chips that we've seen in stuff that are all very equivalent.
Yeah.
So, you know, like the 780M that's in the Ally, that's in most things, that's just the like GPU on the APU.
Yeah.
But the APU front, there's loads of variants that all have slightly different CPUs and whatever. You know, that it's not, the Z1 is the only one that's a consistent, okay, this is that chip.
Yeah.
But there's all these other ones that are like, I can't even think off the top of my head because all random numbers and letters. But there's all these like different chips that are very similar but slightly different. That, you know, whatever. They're only buying all these because they're there. It's AMD just going, have that one and one of these and one of those and this as well. NVIDIA don't give a crap. Like, they ain't making nothing for these companies.
Well,
like,
it's a really big point. Yeah, NVIDIA's a business. They make very little from gaming. It's not their thing.
They're not focusing on APUs. They have no business for that. They like build servers and stuff, like, you know, so like they're not just going, oh, I'll have this and maybe someone can make something cool with it, you know. They're
selling billion-dollar contracts to ChatGPT.
Stuff like that. And then on the side they go, we'll make a graphics card chip, and then that's just known as the NVIDIA RTX whatever. Like, there aren't variants of it that they're selling to people, okay, maybe to China, but regardless of that, like, you know, like there's not all these other ones that, like, let's say Asus could just pick off the shelf and go, I'm going to make the Ally 2 with this chip, because it's just not there. It's Nintendo that went to NVIDIA and went, you know what, guys, do you want to like sort us out? And I know that is actually a variant, isn't it? Like the Tegra X1, the original one, wasn't a custom chip, even though Nintendo said it was. It was like a separate chip that they've tweaked. And supposedly that's the same for the Switch 2.
Yeah,
even though they say it's custom, it's like a tweaked version of a chip from something else. But I would argue that because they're not gaming chips, they're not like actually designed for it, that people like Asus and other people are like, you know what, we're just not going to buy that.
Yeah, it might be it.
But I don't know. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if anyone else does manage to tie in. I guess you'd need the numbers of Nintendo as well as the other big thing to get NVIDIA's attention.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing, I think. Because I think, what was it meant to be from? Like some like GPS tracking system or something?
I think so.
It was some weird thing. Like, so who knows what that was? But what I'm trying to say is they're not making specific chips for these kind of devices, whereas AMD are. They are saying, look, we've made this chip that's for a tablet or a laptop.
We talk about that. NVIDIA took a gamble with Nintendo for the Switch.
Yeah.
Because there was no indication that was going to do well.
No.
As well as it did.
No.
I mean, it's Nintendo, so it's a giant. But like after the Wii U, everyone thought this is going to be another flop.
Yeah.
What's for certain is that Switch 2 is seismic. It's exciting. And for handheld gaming in particular, but just gaming in general.
Yeah, I think so.
It's going to be another moment that changes everything.
Yeah.
It's kind of exciting to see what that is.
Indeed.
Let us know what you think it's going to change in the comments down below and what you're most hyped for. 2 days to go.
And let us know the most controversial like thing that we've said in this episode.
Oh, there's plenty. Mainly not calling it will kill the Steam Deck. Yeah. That was a big one. If there's anything Switch 2 related you want to see from us, anything you want to learn, let us know down in the comments.
Yes.
We've got so much coming up, so if you're not subscribed, make sure you do.
Do it.
Like the video. Yes. What else could they do?
Become a member. And you can chat to us in our private Discord and tell us how we're wrong.
Please do, actually. Yeah, I enjoy that. So until the next time.
Bye.